Kennedy was also successful in his efforts to breathe life into the space program. Following the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik satellite in 1957, government agencies and private industries have been working furiously with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, to place a manned spacecraft in orbit around Earth. As part of the Mercury program, 7 test pilots were chosen to train as astronauts in 1959. Government spending in the future of NASA became uncertain. However, when a task force appointed by the Kennedy administration recommended that NASA concentrate on exploratory space missions without human crews, the mission became evident. All that changed in April 1961. The Soviet Union announced that Yuri Gagarin had circled Earth on board the Soviet spacecraft Vostok, becoming the first human to travel in space. Gagarin's flight rekindled American fears that their technology was falling behind that of the Soviet Union. On May 5th of 1961, the United States made its own first attempt to send a person into space. Astronaut Alan Shepard made a 15-minute flight that reached an altitude of 115 miles. Unlike Gagarin's flight, Shepard's flight did not orbit the Earth. Nevertheless, its success convinced Kennedy to move forward. On May 25th, Kennedy issued a bold challenge to the nation. He said the United States should commit itself to achieving the goal before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon. The nation accepted the challenge, and funding for NASA was increased. Less than a year later, on February 20th, 1962, John Glenn successfully completed 3 orbits around Earth and landed in the Atlantic Ocean near the Bahamas. Later that year, Kennedy outlined the reasons for American space exploration. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. Only if the United States occupies a position of preeminence can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war. John F. Kennedy, speech at Rice University, Houston, Texas, 1962. Over the course of the decade, NASA flights brought the country closer and closer to its goal. Finally, on June 20, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk on the moon. Unfortunately, Kennedy would not live to see the fulfillment of the goal he set in motion, having been assassinated on November 22, 1963.